Hello, I just wanted to make a quick tutorial on something that I haven't seen too many other people talk about, that I like to use as a little thing, essentially, to make easy or simple normal maps for some things where you just want to paint something on and you don't have to want to do the sculpt thing. So I go through, in my case, I'm going to be testing it on the default cube that you can apply to any model that's UV mapped. Uh, I'm going to just make a basic test texture. I'm going to make it 1K because it doesn't really matter. But something that I like to do is make sure that the value here is 0.5, as I want it to be a nice middle ground gray. This will be important in a second. So what I do is I give this one a material, which it currently is set to default material. I then go through, add this image texture that I just made from the image editor to here in the image viewer. Just as a precaution, that's not necessary. I'm going to take the texture coordinate, drag the UV in there. This is normally the default, so it doesn't make that big of a difference. Where the important stuff comes in is when you add the displacement vector, because what we're going to do is drag this color into the height, and this is what gives it the effect. Drag this to displacement. It's not going to have much effect here since we're in Eevee. I believe it does work in it, but for the baking and all that, we'll need to be in cycles set to work off of my GPU. Now, the material preview, which this is the equivalent of what you would have seen, I think, in Eevee for the most part, goes ahead and shows there's not going to be much change since the mid-level is equal to this texture. The reason I did the mid-level like this is now if I go to paint on the model, pull up the tool, black and white will now do two separate things. Black will push in, because gray is now the middle ground. Black pushes in, white pushes out. So now I can simply paint stuff like this on the model to get little simple effects. Pretty simple. The resolution on the textures, not super high, but you can tweak this by adding effects in between. One important one is editing the scale. I normally like dragging the scale quite a bit down. Something low like this makes it a little bit smoother. I go down a little bit more actually. I ended up with the same number. Anyway, you can make stuff pretty simple by doing this, and you can have values in between. So instead of having that, I can have something that's a little bit over the normal gray. So this is only going to extrude slightly, and then you can see the difference. You can't see it when I'm that. There we go. Because now I've got it here. And then now using like some of the new tools, you can use like the blur to help like blur in between, though you can't see it on the render view. Really isn't liking me swapping between them. But either way, you can mess around with them here. You can also edit them in here, such as if I went to paint, I could go here, shrink this, and then blur that, and it blurs that here, and then I get that effect there. Obviously, when I'm painting here, it doesn't look that great. The idea is I've essentially created a simple little way that I can edit one texture and create displacement, which is important because what you can do is then make a new texture. And I'm going to call this one test normal map. So you could have it be whatever. The idea is this is going to be the normal map. Create the new image. It's not plugged into anything, but the idea is here, I go off the texture paint, we can now take advantage of the cycles baking system by going to render, bake, set this to normal instead of combined, and now because this is editing the displacement and as a way of helping visualize it, I can actually pull up this here. I can then hit bake, and it has now generated a normal map for this, which to prove it works, I can then plug this in by going normal map, plug in the UV map, plug in this color, drag this in here, and I can undo this I can put this on here. And as you can see, the effects on there. There will be slight differences in terms of the exact amount of displacement when it comes to the normal map, since displacement can technically make it appear, I think, further than what a normal map normally allows, but this allows for a very basic transfer using something like this. Though normally this also gets, you can't change it here because I'd have to go and save it, but normally you want this color space to be set to non-color, but that's the main gist of it. A simple way of being able to paint using what is essentially a gray map that goes into the displacement that then can be used to then bake pretty quickly using the Cycles baking system into a normal map. Just in case to show that the weird effect of it getting darker is likely as a result of it looking at the colors wrong, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect things from this one. And what I'm going to do is save this. I'm going to have to cut out this or blur this, whatever. Add this here. And then what I can do is add the texture back, image texture, open, blur this, go to the texture. That's the wrong one. There we go. And then what you would do here is instead of color space sRGB, do a non-color, which properly fixes the color it appears as. Then drag the color into here. And now, as you can see, the color of it is much closer to what it was in the displacement, because the issue was it was looking at it the wrong way, because until you save it, I couldn't change the color space. Because if I do this and remove this, they now look much closer.